Subscribe to the Discriminator and smash that like button and hit the notifications bell.
Morning guys, right, we are here, me and Bernie, at the Shire Hall in Norwich. This is where they, I don't know if you can see this, big old building. This is where they have lots of archaeologists and people who study stuff that comes up around Norfolk, and indeed they study things from the museum in the castle, which is just behind the museum. So we're here today for something really special because, as you know, we've been on this potential hoard site, and I've got an appointment today with a gentleman here. He's a doctor, a numismatist. He's going to look at the coins that we found and really assess what's going on with them. Are they part of a hoard? Are they just random? Is it purse spill? What sort of age they are? Because we've got a rough idea. We think sort of Henry's, so that puts them 1200 sort of time. But we'll find out a bit more today, and then we'll know if we're dealing with a legit hoard. And if that's the case, we may need to start telling coroners and things like that. So we'll just go through the process and we'll take you on our journey, and you'll know what to do if you are lucky enough to find a hoard. Let's go in. He may not want to be on camera, we don't know yet, so if he's not, then it'll cut straight to something else, but if not, we'll have a little interview with this guy and see what he says. Let's go inside and find out. We're here with Adrian. He's just looking through the coins. He's very excited. So Adrian's saying we've got, as you say, class 7?
Yeah, that's might be associated. Yeah, we're looking mainly at short cross class 7s with a few 5s and 6s. The 5s and 6s are belong to mid years of the reign of John, from about 1204-5 to the end of his reign, and then the class 7s belong to the reign of Henry III, so from about 1218 going into the 1240s.
So Henry II not kicking around in here?
No.
Or Henry I? So they're before John?
Or Henry. These are all Henry, or John and Henry III.
All John and Henry
Short
III.
Cross starts with Henry II in 1180. They are the so-called class 1s, but there are none of those, as far as I'm aware, in here. We've got a voided long cross there. That's probably too late. That's 1250s, 1260s.
Now that's interesting, because that's the one I found, I would say, a significant distance from the original hoarders for the first one. So that's good to know. So that's not hoard related.
Yeah.
That was
all the others.
He spotted it. It
likewise,
was a red herring.
Likewise, the cut half is also voided long cross, so that's not going to be part of it. The question then is whether this potentially could be cut farthing. So if we're looking at a purse loss, you might expect to have fractions in there, cut halves and quarters. Equally, if you're looking at something that's not a purse loss, more like a sort of savings hoard, where you're going to concentrate on pennies and not hoard half pennies and farthings, you're probably looking at it not being part of it. So I think in the balance of probability, we'll include it to be on the safe side, and also obviously all the short cross pennies, which are nice tight dates, I say, all class 5s, 6s and 7s.
So what sort of date, you say tight date, within 20-30 years? Yeah,
I obviously will need to have a closer look at them. I can tell they're class 7s immediately, but narrow them down to whether it's a 7A, a 7B or a 7C, because you're spreading from 1218 to 1242 there, so that's quite a span.
Yes.
Good generation.
Like you say, so there's A, B's and C's, because looking at the faces, they're all, well, I say all of them, there's some that are the same, but there are just these subtle differences, aren't there, throughout them, just in little beards and different things like that.
Yeah, they are broadly similar. When you've handled enough medieval coins, you can tell a class 7 pretty instantaneously.
Yeah, I bet.
Because you've got these sort of crescents either side of the face.
He looks quite sad, doesn't he? He's almost got big heavy eyebrows.
Yeah, he's downturned mouth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he's quite distinctive. Class 5s and 6s on the other hand, I don't know if I did see one earlier. Yeah. You have these, annulets, basically circles with a pellet in each circle to the side of the head, so quite different.
So is that supposed to be his hair? Or
Yeah,
is that
yeah,
some
I
part of
think
the crown? That is all part of the hair.
It's sort of very schematic rendering of
So,
the hair.
in your opinion, Adrian, because I've had a fair few hammies, these seem to all be in really, really good condition. Does that also point to the fact that they've been all together in one place for a long time?
Yeah, and also, I don't think many of them have been circulating for that long.
Because they've been worn a bit smooth by...
Yeah, there's no Class 8s significantly, I don't think, which are the last years of short cross, where 1242 to 1247. Then you get voided long cross starting in 1247. So there's none of those. So
could have been buried around 1240.
Yeah,
okay.
it suggests, I think, that you're probably looking at a burial or loss, if it's a purse hoard, date in probably the mid 1240s.
Wow.
You don't see that many Class 8s, so it might not be significant, but you can't really push the burial or loss date past 1247, because that's when you get the change to voided long cross, and short cross would no longer be, legal tender.
Oh, okay.
So
So they'd have to be melted down, would they, at that point?
Yeah, you would go along to your moneyer with your short cross, and he would recoin them for a percentage. So that's
lovely. So
how it works.
like a bureau de change.
It's a nice way, of course, for a king to get a bit more cash.
Yeah,
because
from his own
moneyers pay for the privilege of being moneyers.
Right.
And then they recoup their fee by recoining.
That makes sense. They're offering a service, aren't they?
Yeah. So
is there any obvious mint marks on these to say where they're from? Because I can't work
the
out
nice
these
thing
ones.
about short cross pennies, actually, I was turning it over. The nice thing about these is you have a moneyer and a mint. So with your Edward pennies, for example, it's just Civitas London, Civitas Cantor.
And we're okay with those ones, but these ones are
Yeah.
like, Christ.
Well, these have a stock formula, so you have moneyer's name, and then on, basically of, and then mint name. So there you've got ROG, and you've got a bit off of flan, but you've got enough there to be able to say that is Roger on, and then Ant for Cant, so Roger of Canterbury.
Okay, so physically his name, Roger, and then Canterbury. I don't know if I'll be able to show you that on there.
That's really interesting.
Can it focus? If not, I'll get a little photo on there, but Roger of Canterbury. So an actual person's name, not just literally an institution that mints them.
Yeah, you have the name.
That's fantastic.
Names of the moneyers. And the moneyers they're people of substance.
I was going to say, because
they're not
even
the
king
actual
doesn't have his
blokes
name
who
on there,
are
does
banging out the coins.
Well, these ones
They're
do say Henricus.
They're normally merchants. We know, for example, from I think it's Henry, one of Henry II's moneyers, I think, that one of the moneyers is also a wine merchant.
Oh,
so
right.
he's getting his fingers in several pies.
So no different from today, really. Bankers got all the dollar.
Yeah. Now this is in Class 7. Here you've got another one. You've got Nichole, so Nicole.
Oh yeah.
And then on. I think you've got an L there for London. But each coin has a mint and a moneyer on it.
No, it's just now that you know how to read it, it's become a lot more clear. I was looking for Civitas on there, and it was just like, nah.
It's interesting. You do get some issues where you've got lots more moneyers working. Which normally, Class 5, for example, is the class that's associated with John's great recoinage in about 1204. And because you're having a big recoinage, there's lots more mints opening temporarily with moneyers. So you get Norwich, for example, striking in Class 5, but not earlier, and not where you get it in Class 1.
So just to get the circulation up.
And then you get this contraction later on. Class 8, for example, really contracted, and you've got Nicole at London and Nicole at Canterbury striking. That's about it. So you've got very few monies in Class 8.
Okay.
But at other times
So I suppose that helps with the coin's rarity as well, then, does it, or not? Because they just did such a huge amount in such a small time.
there's some mints and monies are rarer than others.
Yeah.
It stands to reason. You've got some people who are knocking out huge amounts. Ilger of London, for example, operating Class 5, 6 and 7. His stuff is really common. So presumably he is issuing
He's
enormous
really
numbers
whacking them
of
out.
short cross pennies.
And sorry, we keep asking a million questions. So, a Henry the Third, Class 7, as it were. What sort of amount of circulation would go out? Do you know into the UK or Britain or England, or whatever you want to call it? Then
It's very difficult to quantify.
yeah,
You can play around with things like die studies, because each die is subtly different. So you can tell coins struck by one pair of dies as against another. The dies are handmade with little puncheons, so you're building it up by hand. So you can do things like look at the number of dies there are from the surviving coins, and then you can try and quantify that by saying, oh well, there's probably so many thousand coins struck with each die. It's pretty chaotic.
especially seeing that they've lost a die somewhere. You
Yeah,
could have lost
and there's
thousands of-
lots of variables, because
Yeah.
sometimes a die might break after a few hundred coins. Other dies might carry on for many thousands. So
Well, that leads on to, I mean, I called it a double stamped on there, but someone also said it was a brokage coin. I don't know if that's the right thing, but that's got the pellets and short cross stamped onto the portrait.
yeah, it's double struck.
Yeah.
A brocage, as we call it, is quite distinct. That happens when you've got both your dies, so you've got a lower die and an upper die, and sometimes you're banging away with your hammer, and sometimes a coin will get stuck on either the upper or lower die.
Right.
If you're working at speed, you put another blank on,
Of course.
and so you've got this sandwich effect.
Yes, yeah.
And so the coin that results from that will have one side normal and the other side will be in cuse of that side.
Yeah, well, it makes perfect
Yeah.
sense. And like you say, you're working at speed, yeah.
This one is double struck, so what's happened there is it's been hammered and then it's spun or flipped and then it's got a sort of secondary knock.
So they're working at that
you've got
sort of
part
speed.
of the
Christ.
you've got part of the king's head
Yeah, you can see like his
And then the
beard
short
and
cross
just the
design.
mouth. Yeah.
on top of it. So yeah, because you're working at speed and by hand, there's all sorts of cock-ups that can happen.
Yeah.
And that happens in a mint today, where you've got machines where you get sort of 20p's with bits
Yeah.
bitten out of them, where
This is it.
the actual cutter has gone slightly.
And someone finds it and they're
askew.
worth them in £10 for a 20p piece and things.
Yeah.
The only other thing was, there you go, there's a good example. There's a coin there which has got a very flat area on it and have almost completely missed the mark, as it were.
Yeah.
Is that just through wear, or is that just literally
I
someone...
think that's flatly struck, so you're not necessarily getting the dies coming down neatly every
Yeah.
time. If it's coming down at a slight angle,
Right. And then-
part of the coin, part of the blank is just not going to get struck at all, so you'll get flat areas.
Yeah, flat
So
area.
yeah, just another sort of thing that can go wrong.
But they have no issues with that in quality control, as it were.
No.
They just go straight out. It's a bit
Not
of
at all.
silver. No, just use it. Okay. So yeah, these come from a fairly small area, but well, that's in my opinion. But from you've looked at the map, you say it's quite a big area because it's probably about 100 meters in length from the furthest away to the next
Yeah,
furthest away.
that's perfectly possible.
It's possible.
Indeed. I remember we were chatting on the phone the other day, and chap Mike Cudderford, he's carried out experiments where he got 100 not old pens,
Yes.
the ones before 1992, because after that they switched from being copper to being
Clad
iron
glass,
with
yeah.
so they don't give a good signal. So he picked 100 of the earlier ones, marked each one, put them in a clump just sort of low plough depth, and they moved. And of course, I think it went back 5 years later, and he found about half of them in a bit of a spread. Some had gone quite a way, just being carried by the plough.
And that's just in 5 years.
Quite a few he never found. So yeah, they can move.
Yeah, so
when
this
you've got
being quite a few hundred years.
Well, yeah, sort
Yeah,
of
so-
900 years, and indeed we've found, well, if we take out these ones, maybe 10, 11 coins, and we haven't found the radius of this spread yet, which is why we're going back the next couple of days. And then, does it work in the theory that there's an epicenter, which, if we work on the theory it is a buried hoard, for example, then at some point there's a pot, a metal pot, or
there's a very good
ceramic pot?
example which happened years ago, early in my watch here, about 2005. That was with Derham Hoard. That was a Roman hoard of silver denarii, so different period, but classic. Obviously, just the lid, the lip of this pot is obviously just above plough level. So the plough came along one year, I think a bit deeper than usual. Shears off the top, spreads denarii across an area, quite a reasonably big area, but there's a definite spread, and the detectorists went along in this one area, all over the place, carried on, got the pot, and the pot was lifted entire. So yeah, there will be an epicentre. Having said that, if it's a purse loss,
well, I think that's the next conversation, isn't it? Because if at what point, I guess we have to collect more coins to disprove a purse loss in theory, then, don't we? I mean, how big can a purse loss be? Hard
indeed,
to say, is it?
yeah,
It could be a very nobleman's purse might have hundreds of pennies in it. I don't know.
I think the lack of sort of cut halves and quarters is probably, I suppose, may well not be associated. So if
we found
that's
other
the
Henrys
case,
on that field, haven't we? So,
yeah, because if you're looking at purse losses, they will have fractions in cut halves, quarters, where what you're using for your everyday transactions. If you're putting things in a pot, more a sort of savings hoard, you'd expect to wean those out, and you'd just be really you'd be going for the biggest silver coins you can get.
So you could see
in
groats
this
and half
period
groats in there as well. Okay.
you wouldn't hear, because we haven't got half groats and groats yet.
Of course, they come in with your Edwards, don't
Yeah,
they?
they're labelled free, so
see,
they're
now that's
13,
another thing.
50,
So if this was a
50,
hoard,
51.
what would it be buried in? What would the...
We've no way of knowing.
No way of knowing, okay.
People quite like to put coins in pots.
Yeah.
Equally, it might have been it could be in a bag.
So it could just be in a leather
Could be
bag.
could be in a box. Could be in any sort of receptacle you've got that you can put coins in would suffice. So yeah, you've not got your groats and half groats. So the penny is the biggest silver coin you've got, and there's no gold at this period either. There's foreign gold, but there's no gold being minted in this country. So
always going to be
the
a
silver penny
hoard,
is your
yeah.
biggest coin. It's worth a fair bit. It's worth about half a day's wages at this period.
Yeah. So it's significant. Even what's on the table is, a couple of weeks' work, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so later on, for example, if you're burying a hoard in 1500, it will probably just be groats you're picking out. But at this period, it's the humble penny is still the biggest thing you've got.
And this is what we do at home, isn't it? We throw pound coins in a jar, and we don't necessarily put the pennies in there. We keep them separate, don't we? And we go for the bigger denomination. No, that's really, really cool.
That's really interesting too.
So what happens next then, Adrian? We have to leave these with you and register them?
Yeah,
or how does that work?
the treasure legislation is quite straightforward on something like this. It's certain to my eyes that what you've got here is a dispersed hoard or a purse loss. Since the coins are more than 300 years old, about 12 after 1200, and since they're silver and there's two or more of them,
Indeed.
they qualify as a dispersed hoard. They are treasure because of that. They will then go to they'll go through us. I will record them. They'll then be offered up to a museum who can purchase them for for full market value. If they do that, it's known as claiming them. If not, and I suspect we won't be claimed, we've had hoards like this in the past but haven't been, so they will then be disclaimed and then they'll be returned to you.
Fantastic.
You can do with them what you will.
And let's say, I mean, the next couple of days we're going back to the site because we think there's a spread further on and we find another 12. We have to bring those along and just go through the same process and they get added to the same.
Well, what we will do is we won't fill out the paperwork just yet. We'll wait till you've been.
Yeah, if that's all right. Because
Yeah.
I think that field will be cropped imminently. So
Yeah, there's no point having two treasure cases when we can just
go
put
with
them
one
all together and have one.
Fine. Okay.
So yeah, we'll do that, and then it might well be, as you say, it might be 24 rather than 12. Or it might be a pot of them, who knows?
Well, this is the thing.
This is what we have to find out.
Yeah, and my process, I mean, and this is another interesting part that I'd like to have a quick chat about, is the idea of this epicentre. So I've mapped them out on a map, obviously, using GPS. Does it really, do you think the centre of the spread is where it would be, or do you think because of the way the ploughs go up and down the field that actually you could be on the periphery of the spread? It's really difficult, isn't it?
I think if you've got sort of 12 and you're spreading them out, you would guess that near the centre is probably where they're going to
So
be.
that's what to work on, yeah.
It's difficult because you could get the plough coming along, whack, and then carry on on a line, and several of these have got stuck and they're sort of dropping off as it goes along.
Yeah.
So then, you'd be looking at the hoard being here at
Rather
the first
than
point
in the
of
middle
contact.
of that spread. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's different. But if you've got the plough going up and down like that, you'll probably.
And that's what it seems to be. I mean, certainly at the moment, it covers an area of maybe a return of 2 in either direction. So, in theory, if they've been moved around like this that entire time, the centre still stands, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's terribly tricky how it's working, but sort of actually.
And indeed, the depth that we're dealing with, our detectors don't go down that far. So once we've got an idea of where this epicentre might be, I think he's happy to potentially remove some topsoil, and so that we can go down a little bit further and try and gauge if there's anything more.
No, I think that's very sensible. If you just take
time with it,
very few inches off, so you're not going down where you might get potential archaeology.
Indeed, and of course,
if that happens,
exactly.
the best thing to do would be to phone us, and we'll hopefully be able to get out there and actually excavate anything that's there if there is a pot.
So that's the
of
key
course,
thing.
if you've got the pot in situ, you might have other things associated with it. So,
well,
so
that's exciting.
That would be a responsible thing to do if you were getting, say, short cross pennies in the same hole. You could be probably confident that there's probably a pot of them down there. But all you can do is just go back there and be damn thorough.
Yeah, well, this is what I've done. I've filmed it as well, but with the spade, literally drawing grids into the mud and then working up and down those grids so that we make sure, and that's what's led to this accurate mapping on the GPS. So we continue to do that and just hope, but it's very difficult because it's going to be cropped. When he ploughs next year, we might get nothing, or we might get even more come up, and who knows if we'll get an opportunity to go down at the end of harvest and actually get any further with this. Well, it's exciting.
Well, at least you can be fairly confident they're not going anywhere.
No, there is that, and of course location is very secret at this point in time because we don't want any night hawkers on that land, obviously. No, that's really, really interesting. Have you got any questions, Bernie?
Well, the fact that we found medieval purse bars, I don't know. Well, I found one, and Chris found one. I mean, mine was quite close to the area. I can't remember where yours was. Was it further down? Same field further down.
Yeah, it could have been.
I mean, I don't know if that.
The
would
problem
help.
is with the purse bars, they tend to be quite a bit later in date.
Okay.
If it's one of
rules
your
that one out.
classic sort of medieval purse bars, they are very late medieval. They're about sort of 1500.
So then that rules the
they're
purse,
300 years after.
Okay.
So you don't get those sorts of purse bars in 1200 or 1250. So it's I don't think there's any association.
Okay.
But
well, that's pretty much.
they could be
clear that
associated
one
with
up
another
then.
hoard. But
Well, heaven
but not
forbid
not
there's
I
more
think,
than
not I think
one.
with this one.
My word.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Right, Adrian, that's absolutely brilliant. Thank you ever so much for all that information.
Sure.
Have you got anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's pretty
lovely.
much it. I think we just need to detect around those trees.
We do. We need to get back out there and really investigate, don't we? And that information will come back here as well. Right, guys, that's been really interesting. We'll see you on the next one.